Welcome. My name is Kevin, and this is the Bible Artist Podcast, and this is our Bible verse podcast discussion series. We've been going through the story of David's time in the wilderness as the leader of a band of outlaws on the run from King Saul, and we've been talking about how we would turn that story from the Bible into a multi-season TV show. And so we hope that you'll enjoy this conversation as we're going to be discussing our finale. So what would be the last episode of that show and kind of the story arc for the final episode. But before we get into that, I'll have my guest hosts introduce themselves.
Guess I'll go first. I'm Victor. I'm a video producer in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm also a aspiring writer, and I've got my book that I'm working on called The Sojourners. It's book one of the Chronicles of Valvatar, and you can read it for free at vicdigital.substack.com. It's a Christian fantasy novel.
Awesome. Victor, do you have your own shirt?
I do. Yeah, I'm a video producer, so.
Well, you didn't let us know that we could be getting Victor shirts this entire time.
Those are also available.
I'm Chad, friend of Kevin. That's how Kevin and I know each other originally, and then done some creative things together. And then what I do for work is I'm a hospice chaplain, and I also do some writing on the side of adult Bible study curriculum.
Awesome. So let me pull up our slides. Okay, so this is our season outline. I'm not going to go too in depth on it because, if you're just joining us at this point, you should probably go back and just start at the very. You don't have to necessarily watch everything, but I would at least go back to the discussion of our story outline and then kind of all the episode outlines before coming to this final episode. But we are at the end, episode 10. I'll do like a recap of the past couple episodes leading up to this one. So our midpoint of our show was the story of David finding Saul in the cave. Saul's relieving himself, and David has a chance to kill him, but he doesn't. And that kind of launches us into the second half of our season. So because David chooses to spare Saul, that creates tension within David's camp. David's men are frustrated that David did not take matters into his own hands and seize power by killing their enemy who has been pursuing them. And so that creates a bunch of friction within their camp. And some of our main characters, so we've got a former slave named Jehoiada. We've got the son of the murdered high priest, Abiathar. They are frustrated at David for not kind of doing what was necessary. And so, later in the season, in kind of like episode 7, Jehoiada, he decides to try to take matters into his own hands. And so he goes on this mission to try to kill Saul and save his son himself. His son is another central character. His name is Benaiah, and he is in the service of Saul throughout the season. And so Jehoiada in episode 7 goes to try to save his son. Things go awry, but he does get his son out. Saul doesn't get hurt, but he chases after their men. After David and his men escape, but that event reignites some of the tension between Saul and David's men. And then in episode 8, we have the whole Nabal story, which we get in scripture. So that's the story of David. He sends some men to this local rich farmer named Nabal, asking Nabal to give them some food during a big feast that he's hosting. And Nabal kind of disrespects David and sends the men away. David is tempted to go, he takes a few hundred men to go slaughter Nabal and all of his men. But David is stopped from doing that, and that is kind of an important moment, learning moment for David. He's kind of in that moment. He's starting to he's reacting to kind of the push of his men for him to start acting more like a typical king, and to be someone who kind of takes matters into his own hands and uses violence and power to seize things for himself. But after he almost makes that big misstep, he kind of starts rethinking that mindset. Episode 9 is a big marriage episode. That was kind of one of the major episodes that we discussed in our last meeting. And so we have Jonathan, David's friend. He goes to David to try to get David to come and save Michal, who's Saul's daughter and David's first wife. But David is not able to do that, and instead he ends up marrying Abigail, the widow of Nabal, who dies in episode 8, and then another woman, Ahinoam of Jezreel. And so David is kind of once again getting into that kind of political mode of thinking, thinking about, making alliances, securing supplies, and David's decision to start kind of marrying multiple women, and through that to kind of secure alliances. Saul gets wind of that at the end of episode 9. And so that is kind of one of the precipitating events for what's going to happen in episode 10. Episode 9 also ended with someone who was trying to lay claim to one of David's wives, to Abigail. He gets stopped from doing that, and David claims her for himself. But because he's frustrated at David, he reports to Saul kind of the whereabouts of David's camp. And so that's kind of setting us up for episode 10, where Saul, he's had kind of a couple of provocations from David after vowing to not go after David in episode 5. He's had kind of a couple of occasions where, first in episode 7, one of David's men, kidnaps one of his servants and is violent. And then, he hears about David making these marriage alliances. And so that's kind of enough to put Saul over the edge to go back on his word and start seeking after David, which will be what happens in episode 10. Let's see. Other kind of characters to introduce. We've got the Hittite, who eventually will be Uriah the Hittite. He starts out the show in the service of Saul, and he's kind of trying to hunt down David and his men. He plays various roles throughout the different episodes. But then around episode 6 or 7, he gets betrayed by Saul's generals, Saul's leaders, and they kind of leave him kind of out in the open, and he's captured by the Philistines, and he'll come back into the picture here in episode 10. The servant Benaiah, so Jehoiada's son, who was in the service of Saul, and then we said how he got rescued in episode 7, but then he at the end of episode 9, he returns back to Saul's camp with Jonathan, and so he'll play a role as well. Kind of trying to do a lot of big picture summaries so that things make sense. Do you guys have any questions or any things that you guys think that I should recap that I haven't gotten to yet? Cool. Then let's get into the main episode. So all of our episodes have been, or pretty much all of them have been named after location names. So this one is Hakilah, which is the hill or the mountain where Saul pitches his camp, and which is kind of one of the central locations of our episode. So the story is going to open with Jonathan and Benaiah returning back from episode 9, where they went to visit David. And as they return, towards Saul's kind of headquarters in Gibeah, they see a huge huge army coming out of Gibeah in the direction that they're coming from. And they learn that Saul has discovered the location of David's hideout, and he's issued his host, and he's planning to go after them. So it's just kind of a teaser for the source of conflict in the episode. Before we get into Act 1, anything on that?
I guess the only thing is like what sort, and we may be going into this, but like what sort of continuation or fallout from all the marriage stuff are we going to be immediately seeing in this episode?
Yeah, that's good. So in episode 9, we established that Saul, so there's a few different kind of marriage dynamics going on. The most kind of relevant to this episode is that when Saul hears that David has started to marry multiple women from kind of different Israelite territories, which is kind of the sort of thing that kings would do back in that day in order to build alliances, secure resources, curry favor with different parts of different tribes of Israel. So when Saul hears that David is doing that, he senses that like David is starting to act like a little king himself, like a rival king, and so that's what kind of precipitates Saul choosing to go after David and see him once again as a rival or a threat after having kind of tried to ignore him for a little bit. We may also run into the character, I'm forgetting what his name is, but Saul offers David's first wife, Michal, to, I think it's Palti, and we kind of established that as a kind of another heroic warrior who does some deeds on Saul's behalf earlier in the season. And so he kind of is given Michal because of that, which is kind of an insult to David because she's still technically David's wife. But, Saul is kind of over David and doesn't mind insulting him at this point. We're not going to get too much into like Abigail and Ahinoam in this episode. I don't think they play pretty much any role. So really like last episode, the stuff with them, they'll be probably in season 2, but they're not like major players in this episode. No. Okay, so Act 1. So we'll have Jehoiada. So that's our former slave character. He is going to discover. So Benaiah, he left kind of at the very end of last episode, and he did so without informing his father beforehand. And so Jehoiada will learn that his son Benaiah has left, and that's going to kind of cause another crisis for him. He's going to feel frustrated, afraid for his son, worried. And as he's kind of learning that, the Hittite will arrive suddenly in David's hideout with a message from the Philistines who had captured him and have kind of recruited him to be their messenger to David. So the Hittite, he shouldn't be he shouldn't know where David's headquarters is. We're not going to get into like how he found them out, but we've kind of established him as like a bit of a tracker kind of character. So it's believable that he somehow found them out. But so the message that he brings from the Philistines is basically at this point the Philistines are want to put David in Saul's place. They want to kind of establish him, take Saul out and make David kind of into their own client king or puppet king by siding with him. So that's kind of the offer that he extends from the Philistines. And there's a little bit of debate in response to this initial offer. So some of the characters are going to be like questioning, like, first of all, can we trust this Hittite? Second of all, even if we can trust him, can we trust the Philistines to make good on their word? I think like Joab will be like, yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like they're not gonna, given the current situation of things, they probably are looking for someone that they can use against Saul after his victory, and so it makes sense that they would want to ally with us. So some of David's men will be like, yeah, maybe we should take this deal. It would provide us with a potential powerful ally against Saul, and kind of be a way for us to advance in our efforts to make David king. But David ultimately kind of shoots the idea down. He doesn't want to like owe his kingship to one of God's enemies, and kind of be like, yeah, in their debt, basically. So he's just kind of decided that he doesn't want to take their deal when another report shows up, and yeah, there's news of Saul's massive army that's on its way to toward their camp. It's still a ways off at this point, so it's not like a immediate emergency, but there's kind of more debates like, should we just run away and flee? But if we do that, we've established alliances now with Abigail and with the Ahinoam's family in Jezreel, and so if we just completely run away at this point, maybe Saul will try to take revenge on them, and should we kind of stand our ground? That kind of debate goes on. Amasa, who we've established as kind of a little bit of a rival to David among the men, he urges them to go and try to kill Saul, and that gets kind of some popular support. And David, he doesn't kind of make a final determination, but decides that he is going to like go and see Saul's camp and see, like, trust the Lord to kind of provide guidance, or show him kind of what to do at that point. Yeah, so Act 1. Any thoughts on what we've got there?
One question I have is, like, we've kind of established that when there's a big decision that David or Abiathar will use the Urim and the Thummim.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that not happen here? Or why would we say that doesn't happen here?
That is a good question. Yeah, I need to think that through more. I don't have an immediate reason, but I don't think we can have that happen. Yeah.
Describe it really quick. The few times that he does do it, what kind of choices? Like what kind of choices is he making?
I do feel like this is the kind of choice where it would be appropriate for him to use it. So, how we've shown it in the past is that often he uses the Urim and Thummim when it's like, should we do this or should we do this? Like, should we go out and battle against this enemy, or should we stay? Like, are these people going to betray us, or are we going to be okay? So it's often like in deciding difficult questions. Yeah, I think we do have to. So that is something I probably didn't develop enough for.
Are they choices where it's like a more obvious, like, right and wrong choice? It's probably not, right? Like, should we? Again, I don't exactly remember, like the kind of the moral aspect of these choices before, like if one is clearly morally better or not. But like, if this is, like, does that maybe change anything? That this is not a matter of just like, do we go left or go right, but like, do we go right or go wrong? Does that make sense? Like, but I don't know exactly. I don't remember what the past choices were.
Yeah, so sometimes like there is a moral aspect. Sometimes, yeah, like I don't know if we'll kind of be able to um, wave it away because of the nature of the choice. Just comparing this to other situations where we've seen him use it. What might work
Could it be that it's just not there with him? That it's somewhere else?
would have to like kind of work that back
Right.
into earlier in the season.
You're saying that like using it here to make the choice about whether to kill Saul or not, right?
So that I mean, there's a couple of potential places
things,
where
yeah.
it could be relevant to. One would be the do we ally with the Philistines or not? I mean, there I could potentially see it being brought up, and David's like, it's not even like this is a no-brainer. Like we don't need to like sometimes like there's like a real question, and here there's not like a real question because we know what Yahweh would think of this. The second question I think is more complicated. I think part of it, I mean, it could be that they don't even know exactly what to like. David isn't he isn't making a choice yet. Like by the end he's just saying let's go see. Like he doesn't even know what to he knows he needs to do something, but
does he have an affection for Saul? Right?
Yeah,
like
he
that's
does.
part of it. So I mean, that would be one aspect of like when you cast the the lots or whatever it
That's
is,
true.
like it's like you are committed. So in theory, you would say, I want to do what the Lord, would have me do. But yeah, there is that element of like maybe he doesn't. Not only is he not sure about whether, it's right or wrong to kill Saul because Saul's going to come after him, but also could he be able to deal with that?
Yeah,
so I don't know.
like that.
There's always that dimension too, but this makes me think that like how, like when the Urim and Thummim are brought up, like initially, like I don't remember exactly, but like, does that need to be like kind of explained through dialogue or something? Like, when is this appropriate so that viewers aren't just thinking like, oh, just use those again.
Yeah. So I like the idea that you're saying where like David may not want to bring them in because we've discussed how once you bring the Urim and Thummim in, then you're kind of locked in. And we've also established that some of the men are resistant to the Urim and Thummim just because it can be seen as like a tool for the priest to manipulate things. So they might be resistant. Like they're probably not going to insist on using them themselves. And so if we establish that like David could even say to Abiathar, like I please don't bring up the Urim and Thummim right now. Like I need to this is a decision I need to make myself. It could be something as simple as that, like that he feels like a responsibility to especially with the last choice to make it himself. Yeah.
I mean, there's always the you can always use comedy, and it could be one of the running jokes is phone wallet keys for Abiathar, but it's like phone wallet Urim and Thummim, and like they're always he keeps like almost losing them all the time, and then finally he's like, I don't know where they went, and then that kind of it would be kind of isn't that in the Bible? Like they don't, it's not really like they kind of appear at places and then like don't show up at other places, so it's like.
We don't know what happened to them, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I don't know. At some point, I lost them. Anyways,
yeah,
we're not going to do that. But I always have to think of something stupid. I feel like so.
Yeah, I think. I think we might have enough there where we don't necessarily need to. It doesn't necessarily need to be about like that this choice is like too complicated or one thing or another, but it may be that we're seeing that the members involved in this decision, like both sides, don't want the Urim and Thummim brought in because everybody kind of has their own preconceived desire that they're going after, and so if the Urim and Thummim get brought in, then they're locked in.
Do we ever land on like a particular like mechanic for these? Like I know we discussed it quite a bit at one point. Like, did we ever land on something like this is how it works? This is when it's used. This is when it's not, or is it still kind of fuzzy?
I think we discussed it as probably like some sort of kind of lot or like dice-ish thing. So like that limits its use to like fairly simple questions. Although we also discovered like they aren't the only way that God can answer. So God can potentially inspire someone to prophecy in response to a question that's more complex, or give like a dream. But that's like not the kind of the primary way. And so we discussed it as questions that are like fairly simple, and usually these are not like personal questions. These are primarily like military or judicial questions, decisions about like to attack or to retreat, or is someone guilty or not guilty, that kind of thing.
I mean, could it just be that it's out of the? I don't know. I have to think about it. Could it be that it's just out of question, or like it's not even a question because Saul is the Lord's anointed? Like, could it just be that is not something to present? Like, would that just be something? I don't know. Maybe that's
I mean,
too strong.
That could be David's response, is basically like just like he rejected the idea of allying with the Philistines kind of as like, we already know the answer to this question. He could also insist that this is a question that is kind of doesn't need.
Yeah, the doubt might be less about like I don't know what to do. It might just be more like I think I know what to do. Like I think I know what the right thing is, but like it still doesn't take away like that it's very tempting, because like Saul does present like a real immediate threat. And it's kind of hard to know. I don't know. Anyways, sorry, we can move on. But
yeah, also like another thing, kind of this is like a initial conversation, but they're like David is going to have to make a final decision, like all the way like late Act 3. So we also don't want it to be like if he's already kind of too clear on his decision, then that takes a little bit of the tension out of things. We could also potentially even just have it be like David doesn't know what to ask the Lord to do, like because you need to use the Urim and Thummim, you need to have like a clear like question, like do we do this or do we do this? But like or he could ask something that like that leaves kind of open some possibilities. So it could be like we have him finally deciding to like go, he's going to go to see Saul's camp. So he could ask not like, should I go kill Saul or not, but just like, should I go out to encounter Saul's army? And the Lord answers yes to that. But that still leaves it a little ambiguous as far as like what he should do once he gets there. Yeah. I don't know.
I would just make it because we know he doesn't use it in the Bible anyway at this point. I wouldn't have us do any of those usages that aren't in the Bible.
That's true. That's true.
I think it's just enough to where you could just have a whole bunch of different people giving him a bunch of different solutions that they're just throwing them at him. Everybody's got a different angle, and there's one answer isn't going to satisfy enough people to where it won't even be worth it to consult the Urim and the Thummim, because it's going to make everybody unhappy anyway.
And I have Abiathar like come with him, so he could potentially say like, if the Lord presents me with a clear decision, then I will bring the Urim and Thummim. But but right now I don't even know what to ask. Something like that.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be something that the audience will be asking. So
yeah,
it needs to at least be addressed.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anything else on Act 1 though? It's a little debatey, but like we're just kind of trying to like set up like some of the conflicts and.
I did really like the setup for why the Philistines would even offer this to David, is to make him a puppet king. That works really good. That's a legit reason I've never seen put forth before. So
yeah,
it would also be like, I mean that he could just dismiss it, but it's also like it, like at a just like a worldly level. It's like, well, here's like a power that's like wanting to help us, and it's like it's shortcut to safety or success and defeat of your immediate enemy. But like the irony in doing that is that David did defeat like the champion of like the Philistines. So it would be very weird for him to become their puppet king. So I don't know if that's like a tension he's gonna feel, or if he's just gonna reject it. Like it's like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
No, I like that. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, going into Act 2, so David's decided to go see Saul's army. So he heads out. He's got kind of just a lot of the main characters with him. This isn't like an episode where we have characters going all over the place.
Sorry, can I back up really quick for a second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was like, maybe I'll ask this later, but maybe I'll ask it now. So I feel like the finale really should be like, not necessarily on the nose, but just like the main theme is like going to be really, it should just be like, I don't know, all the questions we've been asking in different shapes or forms like are going to be, should be pretty clear here. And so it's like, I don't know exactly how to frame the main question, but it's about, whether we trust in might and in man or in God. And so you have, at least in Act 1, like the temptation to choose either the strength of, I guess it would be like God's enemy, or trust in his own strength. So that's one. I don't know if that's how you were thinking about it, but that's like, those are two, possible courses of action that don't seem quite right, but that feel like the most, and then there's the I guess I could trust in God and see whatever he has to say. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yep. So we'll hopefully be hitting that note a few more times during the episode, but definitely, the debate over the Philistines and over killing Saul, we're kind of starting to hit that question. So with Act 2, David heads out. He's got the Hittite, Jehoiada, Abiathar, Amasa, even Abishai. So he's got a whole crew of soldiers with him. So we have like a few like kind of some space to have the soldiers kind of discussing and having conversations. So we'll have like a conversation between the Hittite and Jehoiada, where the Hittite will get to like talk to Jehoiada about Benaiah, because the Hittite earlier in the season has encountered Benaiah and thinks highly of him. And we'll also, this will be a space for the Hittite to kind of process through what he has disliked about Saul's kingdom and his army, and what he sees as different about David and his men, how they are kind of motivated by the sense of purpose and faith. And so that'll be like a moment for us to kind of see the Hittite, processing through things and coming to a place of growth. He's under no obligation to go out with David and his men, because he's been sent on this errand by the Philistines, but he doesn't need to go with David and his men, but he goes with them because he respects them, and he wants to see if there's any ways that he can help them. Meanwhile, Saul, his army, before they reach David's hideout, they have to camp because Saul has like another kind of demonic demonic oppression event, and so they camp to kind of let him rest and deal with it. Benaiah will have he'll talk with Jonathan, who's kind of his mentor figure, and we've had Benaiah be this very kind of voice of faith and purity, but he'll have a moment where he's almost tempted to try to kill Saul, because he knows that they are heading to where his father is, and he's worried about his father. He knows that he can't go try to warn his father, because Saul's men will see him leaving, and they'll probably figure out what's going on and follow him. So he wishes that he could do something, and he'll kind of feel that temptation. It won't last very long, though. Like, Jonathan will kind of dissuade him from doing it, and instead urge him to have faith. And I was thinking that we could have some sort of conversation where Benaiah is wishing that he could be like David, like striking, the giant, acting in a kind of a great act of faith. Like, Benaiah is thinking of David's clash with Goliath as kind of the epitome of faith. But Jonathan kind of urges him to an even higher act of faith, which is not to strike down your enemies, but to actually bless them. And kind of inspired by that, Benaiah will go on. Well, I'll get to that in a little bit. Meanwhile, David and his men they arrive near Saul's camp. They aren't seen. So David sends Jehoiada and the Hittite to scout out Saul's camp. Meanwhile, David talks to Abiathar, and this will be a spot for Abiathar to kind of process through some character growth from the season. And even though for a lot of the season, he was hoping that David would kill Saul, and he was urging him to do it. As a result of kind of the events that he's seen in the past couple episodes, he'll instead caution or urge David to do the right thing. And I was thinking he could kind of have like a flashback to like David kind of marching with his men, almost like wiping out Nabal's household, and almost kind of bringing bloodshed on themselves, and that almost like connects. He almost sees like a connection between that event and what he saw Saul do to his father's household at the beginning of the season, when Saul marched on the city of Nob and wiped out everybody. So he kind of has this realization that he doesn't want David to just become another Saul. He wants David to be different, and he kind of urges David to do the right thing. Meanwhile, Amasa is kind of working on Abishai, who's kind of David's like tough man, and he's kind of conniving and trying to convince Abishai that Abishai has to do like the the dirty work that David won't, like the necessary thing. And, David can't kind of sully his hands, but men like them know that like some hard deeds need to be done, like that sort of thing. So kind of as they're talking about that, then Benaiah, who's kind of been encouraged by Jonathan to, in faith, kind of bless his enemy, he takes a lyre and he sings like a song over the entire camp of Saul. And there's it's like a kind of a supernatural event where the song causes all of the men to fall into a supernatural slumber. And so then when the Hittite and Jehoiada arrive, they're amazed to see like all the men are knocked out. They're all asleep. And so Jehoiada, the Hittite, goes back to tell David that he can come and scope thing, or to tell him kind of what happened. Whereas Jehoiada decides to keep going on to go visit his son. Okay, so there was a lot there. Before I'm sure you guys have some questions. One kind of clarification. So in the original biblical story, there is a supernatural slumber that falls upon Saul and his men during the scene, but we're not told kind of the mechanics of it. So I invented the whole like Benaiah playing the lyre and singing over the camp as kind of a mechanic for it, and to, I don't know. So
Well, that echoes David singing to Saul when he was young. So
yeah, that's really cool. That's like a I remember there was a slumber. What does it say about, like, does it just say like that they fell into a deep sleep or something, or God caused it, or something? Or what does it say? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it just says God caused the Saul's camp to fall into a sleep or something along those lines. Yeah,
that's really cool though. Like in fact, I love. I know we've looked at Benaiah as like a more like he could just remain thoroughly innocent, and but certainly like I think it's a good choice to have him even have his own moment of temptation. And it actually is the one that makes us seem like the most like, okay, come on. He's like facing someone who's like having what does it say? A demonic fit. Like, like he's witnessing someone who is like possessed by evil in some way or something. Right. Like, and yeah, in the face of that, there is still a better way than to just kill. And it's to bless. And so I don't know. That's a really cool.
Is he playing for Saul?
I think
to do that same kind of thing, and then just happens to also go out to the rest of the camp.
Yeah. So I think he might not like be playing like in front of Saul, but he is playing like he has seen kind of that Saul is being oppressed, and so he is playing because he knows that like it can to bless Saul. Like he's explicitly doing it in order to bring relief to Saul, and it just so happens that God kind of magnifies and multiplies what he's doing, so that not only does he like put Saul at ease, but he actually like brings slumber on the entire camp. Yeah.
So when he's tempted to kill Saul, is he in the presence of him and has an opportunity to do so? Because I think that would be powerful if he's there and chooses, has the opportunity and chooses not to do it, even though he's got it right.
Yeah, you're right. That would be like, in terms of like the actual construction of the scene, it would be best if like he doesn't just like discuss like the idea, but like we see him, he's got a knife. Maybe he's like close at hand, he's there to as a servant. He could easily kind of slip it in, and maybe like Jonathan, like he and Jonathan lock eyes, and and then like they meet afterward, and and then Jonathan kind of gives him the pep talk to that there's like this even greater act of faith that he could do. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And I guess I just love that, like, it's very easy, like, it's not hard for people to make the connection. In fact, you could even use like Jesus' own language.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a really cool scene. This is a really good act. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. I was thinking also, moving on, if we can, to Abiathar. Here's just one idea, because I know we were talking about like, wait, he has like the Urim and Thummim. Could it be that in that act of repentance, I don't know how you would film this, if there's like, because you mentioned flashbacks and stuff, and how you film like how you present like his repentance, like through his words or just his, I don't know, body language or something. But could he prophesy as like that being, like maybe they had on the table, like David's like, yeah, maybe Abiathar, like once we kind of figure out the right thing to ask, like, well, you know, we might seek the Lord in this matter, and that God gives them an answer through maybe that's, I don't know, but, and I don't know, like if you could do that with like I don't know, a priest can prophesy, I'm assuming, right? There's actually a lot of like prophesying, I feel like, and I don't think that, has there been any prophesying like in the show?
Not really. I mean,
except for like David kind of, I don't know. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I definitely, that might be like you might be able to kind of weave that into the scene. Like I haven't plotted out kind of at that detail level of detail, but I could see that potentially being part of it.
Yeah. Because you just, as you have it now, yeah, he repents and then he urges David to do what's right. I was just thinking, because we were talking about the Urim and Thummim, and but that could be, it would actually be kind of a nice parallel, actually, with in the same act you have Saul, like with having this demonic fit, but then you have Abiathar, like speaking the word of the Lord. So there's like a nice contrast there. But I don't know if that's like stretching things too much or adding things, or adding too many things, but it's
that might that definitely, like, I could see that working, and yeah, I do like the contrast there. Yeah. Anything else from Act 2, or?
I just really think the especially with the Benaiah and Saul stuff and him singing over the camp, like those would be two really cool scenes. Like, in fact, I'm even trying to think, like, how much in the show, like how much supernatural activity do we see?
I think this might be the first, other than like the Urim and Thummim, like in some ways, but like there's not, it's not like there's like mystical things coming out. Like it's a very like concrete way that God answers people. So
but you've got Saul. Saul has a couple of demonic fits, so that's kind of
true.
Kind of supernatural-ish.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool that that's reserved for the final episode.
Yeah.
And so is the idea that like the Hittite tells David, and is this point, I mean, I guess David's already been urged to do what's right, but as far as the Hittite's concerned, it's like, look, I'll go back to David, and like this would be like, if he's going to kill Saul, like now is his chance, kind of thing. Like, is that, or is he not thinking that?
So I mean, we'll get into yeah. So with Act 3, Act 3 will open up with the Hittite returning back to the camp, and we'll once again have like kind of a brief debate as far as like what to do, like what is going on, like is the Hittite like fooling them by saying this? No, like I guess we can trust him, but like what is, God has put the entire camp to sleep. Like, does that mean that God is handing them over so that we can go slaughter all of them? Kind of like there's a little bit of like reminiscence of like in Judges, Gideon, like the late night where they don't all fall asleep. They have like night terrors or whatever, but like you could see it it being interpreted by people as like, oh, apparently God has just delivered them up for us to kill them. But so like once again, like David will kind of like he'll push even more of his soldiers to stay behind, and he will end up going with just the Hittite and Abishai. Abishai is going to kind of be we'll have him throughout the episode be a little bit suspicious of the Hittite, and so he's kind of going because he doesn't totally trust what the Hittite is saying. But David is going to kind of see this miracle and see what the Lord shows him to do once again. Yeah.
There's even just like the like this dramatic kind of tension of like yeah, I mean, even though there's this miracle, it's kind of like they're just asleep, right? And so it's like you send 3 men into like an army that's seeking their lives, and it's like there should be a kind of fear that you should feel like just watching them do that, because it's just on the one hand, it's like, okay, God's at work, he's up to something here, but it's still like they're just asleep, and it could actually, that is almost like this is like one of those tropes too, where it's like it was literally in the latest Kung Fu Panda movie, which it made me laugh out loud because I can't remember it exactly, but it's that kind of thing where this small group is going through an enemy like army, and they're tiptoeing around, and like I think what ends up happening is like they do like almost maybe trip a number of times, but they make it through, and then somehow Kung Fu Panda, like I think he farts, he toots, and like I think everyone wakes up. I don't remember exactly, but like that's not that it has to be funny or anything, but it's like it is kind of interestingly, it's amazing how like these tropes, like I don't know, they're pretty old.
Yeah, so definitely there can be tension there of like as they're walking through, like how heavy is the sleep that God has put on the men, like we gotta still be like creeping quietly and everything, and also before they go, kind of tying back to how we had Abiathar kind of urging David to do the right thing, and Amasa urging Abishai to kind of do the hard thing in his mind, like kind of doing the dirty work. We'll have them both kind of urge. So like Amasa will kind of give Abishai one last like exhortation, and Abiathar will give David one last exhortation, and they'll both kind of say the same thing, like kind of like be strong and courageous, that line that comes up a lot throughout scripture, but it has kind of 2 different senses coming from their 2 different perspectives. So for Abiathar, being strong and courageous means doing the right thing in the eyes of the Lord. Whereas for Amasa, as he's telling Abishai to be strong and courageous, it means like doing the tough thing and like doing the dirty work, and even if David says no, just like do whatever's necessary to make sure that we're all secure and safe.
Well, I think the fact that if they bring up Gideon, that's a perfect opportunity for crystallizing in David's mind. Maybe he's still on the fence and like, no, this is just like that. Instead of bringing a whole force in, I need to just bring in the minimum. Like, if I bring in the whole force, they're going to want to slaughter everybody. That's not what I think has to happen here. So just bringing in 2 or 3 people, that's like what happened with Gideon. That's trusting God. That's, that kind of just maybe settles in him, the direction to go.
Yep. Okay, so then meanwhile, back at the camp, we left Jehoiada there. And so Jehoiada is going to try to find his son. And on his way to looking for Benaiah, he happens to see Doeg the Edomite asleep. So just a reminder, Doeg the Edomite, he's kind of the head of kind of like Saul's like CIA or FBI. And we also established at the beginning of the season that before he kind of rose to his current position of power, he actually was kind of in charge of Saul's slave force and was responsible for enslaving Jehoiada and also selling Jehoiada off and then taking Benaiah as a slave back into Saul's forces. And so when Jehoiada sees Doeg there asleep like everybody else, he's got lots of feelings, but kind of before he can act on that, his son Benaiah ends up finding him. They get kind of a moment of reunion, kind of one last final time to say goodbye to each other. And, Benaiah is kind of worried that Jehoiada will be mad at him for having left the camp without talking to him. But Jehoiada, like, as he's kind of seeing what Benaiah has done by singing and by playing the Lord or the lyre over the camp, he'll realize that the Lord clearly has a calling for Benaiah to be where he's at. So he'll get to bless his son's decision to remain with Saul's camp, and they'll part on good terms. Meanwhile, David's arriving in the camp, and they make their way to where Saul is. And when Abishai sees Saul, he will ask David if he can kill Saul. So even if David feels like he himself can't kill Saul, he feels like the Lord has forbidden that. Abishai will be kind of like, let the curse fall on me. I will do what's necessary for you and for God's people. So we'll kind of leave them on a tense like conversation where like David has this decision to make. And meanwhile, as Jehoiada has parted from Benaiah and he's heading back, he comes across Doeg again, and he's tempted to kill Doeg. But Jonathan shows up and dissuades Jehoiada from killing Doeg. And kind of at the same time, Benaiah dissuades David Benaiah and David dissuade Abishai from killing Saul, and instead David takes Saul's spear and his water jug, and they depart from the camp. Yeah. Any questions on Act 3? Or
I guess the only thing, because this is the season finale, we've had a lot of not fighting. There's a lot of almost fighting and then talking, and then I know that's interesting in its own way, but it just feels like there wanted to be some kind of battle or something in this kind of episode.
Could it be that Abishai, he's got a spear to Saul's throat kind of thing, that it's right there? And, could it just be, it's still not fighting if he doesn't end up killing Saul, but it's it could be a pretty intense scene potentially.
I could even potentially see David and Abishai coming to blows, where David is restraining him from doing the deed, and then in the process, like they're able to also like persuade Abishai to back down. That and or something similar with Jonathan potentially.
You could have him saying like, well, if you're going to do that, kill me too.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm mostly like kind of focusing on like the plot point decisions, but yeah, it would be good to kind of fill in some more actiony stuff in between to just to give it some spice and tension and stuff. Yeah.
Wait, how is Jonathan awake?
Yeah. So I mean, Jonathan, I think since he's with Benaiah, I think we just have to take for granted that like whatever it is that God did, like he was immune to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. Like, and they could, potentially, it could even be like almost like a duet sort of thing, like where Benaiah doesn't like maybe, they're both singing or both playing or something together because like their kind of partnership is so central.
I know we like had this, I don't even know if it ever like got included or maybe it would just kind of fit in different ways. But remember we talked about like using Hannah's song? I don't remember where we landed on like where that would fit or not, but like, did we talk about like it being the song that gets played and sung?
So you definitely brought this up as like a good song to include at the beginning and end. I think when we talked through the opening episode, I didn't have this idea yet, but I've been working on actually doing the script for episode 1, and I found a part to insert Hannah's song early on as a song that Benaiah plays for Jonathan during the scene where Jonathan is shooting the arrows and has his final parting with David. And so then I was thinking you could also bring it back here, and that could be the song that they play over the camp that puts everybody to sleep. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. So Act 4, we have Saul and his general Abner awaken, and David calls out to them from a nearby hill, and explains what just happened. And again, we've got kind of a emotional back and forth between them, which we have in scripture, where David is like, you're coming out to try to kill me, and I'm innocent, and you're basically forcing me to go out to serve the other nations instead of being with God's people. And look here, I've got your spear and your water jug to prove that I could have killed you. And by the way, Abner, you suck. Like, how could you let like someone come so close to killing your Lord that they have his spear and water jar? And then meanwhile, so yeah, we have David kind of return, and he gives that whole speech. And then Jehoiada, we have him return separately on his own, and he's kind of carrying kind of a big like we don't know exactly like what it is, and then he like throws it down, and we realize that it's actually Doeg the Edomite, and so we don't end like Act 3. It's like a little ambiguous what exactly Jehoiada has done to Doeg. And in Act 4, we learn that although he has like spared Doeg in terms of like not killing him, he's like he's not perfect. Like he hasn't done like the completely righteous thing of like just sparing him and blessing him. And so like what he has done is he's like kidnapped Doeg basically, and now Doeg is going to he's going to force Doeg to be a slave, just as Doeg took him as a slave at the beginning of the season. Doeg is now going to be forced into being a servant of David. And then David, after he spares Saul, he's now got to face his men who are frustrated, who are thinking that he was going to go kill Saul. And so David, he reveals to them that he's got a plan. So he's not, even though Saul's still out there and he hasn't killed their enemy, he does have a plan for seeking safety, and so he's going to take them to the land of the Philistines. So he insists that he's not going to be a puppet king for the Philistines, but he will seek shelter there and find a way to work with them. And then kind of Benaiah will be the one who's sent by Saul to go retrieve his spear, and he'll kind of hear the news of what they're doing, and it'll end on a little bit of an uneasy note, because David's decision to go seek shelter with the Philistines. So it's good that he didn't kill Saul, but his decision to seek shelter with the Philistines is a little bit of a questionable decision. And we'll have the Hittite as kind of a closer show up and report to the Philistine king that David is coming to ally with him. Yeah.
So this episode parallels like the episode of the midpoint of the season, where David spares Saul. So there's the similarity, but then there's the can you just explain more like David's, I'm not even sure what the right thing to do would be, but it seems like it's not maybe the right thing to do. And why is it just that maybe I just missed something. Can you explain a little more? Like, how are we supposed to be thinking about what David chooses to do next, and like what theoretically is like the right decision that he fails to make, and then why doesn't he make that at this point, when you would think at this point that like he's resolved to do right?
Yeah.
Like he did the courageous thing. He what Abiathar urged, and why does he only get 3/4 of the way there, basically?
Yeah. So probably the right thing would be to kind of continue to be on the run in Israel and trust God to continue. Like, he just saw God like put an entire enemy army like to sleep in order to protect him and his people, and so to trust God to kind of continue to provide and watch over them until God sees fit to push Saul aside and put David in power. So it's the decision to seek safety by allying with the power and might of the Philistines, even if he refuses to kind of like be their puppet king. He's still seeking safety from them. And so, so a lot like the kind of the moral highlight of this episode is Act 3, and then Act 4 is a little bit of a downer, like undercutting both for David, because like he's done like the right thing by not killing Saul, but then he can't quite do totally the right thing, in part largely because his men are there, and he feels kind of pressure to appease them, and he did the right thing with killing Saul, but they're not going to be happy about it. So he has to throw them a bone. And so the decision to go to the Philistines where they'll be safe is kind of the bone that he offers them. Is I didn't kill Saul, but we do have at least somewhere safe where Saul will never have the courage to pursue us. and we will be able to wait until God opens the door for us. Yeah.
I mean, that seems like really like pragmatic. It's kind of like, well, these people they're not listening to me anyways, or is kind of what it feels more like. Like what? But isn't there something deficient like in his faith here? Like, is that kind of what we want to leave people with? Is that like he? I don't know. I'm still like trying to fit. Maybe I'm just missing something, but it's like I'm not satisfied yet with how he
What's his motivation to do this?
Like where? Yeah. What's his? Yeah. Like why?
So I think when David spares Saul, I didn't kind of emphasize this in the outline, but Amasa is gonna kind of be he's gonna kind of have a group of men where like they're almost like ready to revolt or like to because like God gave you the opportunity. What are you doing? Like, why did you not do what was necessary? We even sent someone with you who was ready to do it. You didn't have to even do it yourself. So David's going to feel like some pretty intense pressure from them. So we've established that he feels reticence to ally with the Philistines at all. But he ends up choosing to do so in some way, kind of as a concession, because he doesn't know what to do about his men.
Well, I think you could continue to go ahead.
I was just going to say that at the beginning of the episode, it's about finding. It's like either allying with the Philistines or using your own strength to kill Saul. And so David's made it clear he's gone at least so far to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kill Saul, whether by my own strength or someone else's. But like, this is how many times has Saul tried to kill me? Yeah. And something's got to give. Because if I just, you can't assume that Saul has learned his lesson and now we'll just leave David alone. Yeah. And so he has to make some sort of decision. And so it's not an aggressive decision, but it's it's a defensive one. Yeah. And instead of just trusting that, I'm doing the right thing and God has led us to this point and delivered us each time, and so we just need to keep, I don't know. Yeah. Does that make sense, I guess?
Yeah, that's exactly
okay.
What I was
and maybe
going
that's
for.
What you were thinking. I was just trying to, and I realize you always try to fit everything on one slide, which is kind of impossible. So I realize there's each of these sentences has much more loaded in them. Yeah. But that's got to make sense. It's not like it's the ending of, I don't know how you do that.
So you'd really have to emphasize through Amasa, Saul's going to come back. He's going to do this again and again. And who knows if, one of these times, he's going to do it. Maybe the Lord won't deliver, or even if he does, do we really want to have to keep living on the road, keep having to run around, lose our headquarters, find a new one,
you could have some stuff in there where maybe hey, we're running out of water. There could be little things like that are just building up that make it difficult for them to stay on the road like that.
Or we established that he's he was kind of on the upswing, doing the marriage alliances and stuff. But now, if Saul's really determined to go after them, he's going to go after our alliances. So all that we built, it's all going to go to waste if you don't kill Saul. And now you didn't kill Saul, and so all our hard work, it's all going to go to waste, and we're going to be back in the bad situation we were in before, where we were starving and on the verge of running out of water. Yeah.
Yeah. Just makes me think of the show called David and the Outlaws. It's they're tired of being out. It's tiring. It's wandering around, in the wilderness, right? And it's
the promised land is right there.
Like
Yeah.
they're
Fun.
just like the the only end to this is like Saul being dead, basically. And it's like, if
Yep.
we're not going to kill him, then like, who knows how long we have to wait? And like, the men are just like not gonna, like, this is tiring being an outlaw. And one way to end that is to, you know, trying to, I don't know, seek safety or refuge, just somewhere where, I definitely think it's in there. Like, there's a way to make sense of it. It's just how is that, like,
I think also you can just have, I mean, it's already kind of planted in there that David can say, I'm just going to tell them that we're going to work with them. You know, I'm going to let them think I'm their puppet king. You know, so that, I mean, that could even add more tension to where you, so where because they would trust that. They would think, oh, well, definitely David would do this because we know how much Saul's going after him. It would make sense for David to do this. They would trust that he was on the up and up about it. And he can kind of be playing both sides. Like, yeah, I'm telling them that, but you know, in reality, you know, I'm doing this just for our safety.
Yep.
Not knowing what they're going to ask him to do will be some fun conflicts later on.
Yeah, that'll create all kinds of fun tension for season 2. Yeah. Chip.
Can I ask about other things in the episode here?
Yeah. So just the Jehoiada returning with Doeg as his slave. That's supposed to be kind of a parallel, like it's not like an exact parallel, but basically another situation where we've got a character who they couldn't quite make like the best decision, and so they kind of made like a kind of gray, murky sort of decision. Like they did some good things, but they also kind of decided to go a little beyond what's right.
I mean, is it wrong, or maybe I don't know what the law says in like the Pentateuch. It's like about taking slaves, but it's kind of like it feels like a fitting kind of reversal for someone who hacked away, like God's priests. And at one level, it's kind of like he's not going to be abused, in David's camp. It might actually, in fact, he could be a very interesting character in the next season because he could have his own arc where he goes from just being this like worthless like henchman who like is basically kind of flat to like kind of being grumpy and like grouchy, or maybe he's just still really evil. I don't know.
What do we know? What do we know happens to him?
We don't, like, we're never told kind of his fate. So
we're good for whatever at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he could be like a crazy repentance kind of story or like conversion, like where he's, or it could not be. But
if we ever get around to season 2, that'll be like, that's like one of the questions that I'm like most interested in.
He can sacrifice himself to do something to save a bunch of priests.
Yeah. So we could either like have him kind of go through a repentance arc, or have him kind of continue to be like a thorn in their side and a source of tension. So we'd kind of have to probably kind of see how that fits into what the arc of season 2 would be.
Now, what is the last scene with like the last image in the season? Because it feels a little, just as it's written here, Hittite reports to Philistine king. So tell me what you're envisioning, because it's like a very like it sounds underwhelming, but tell me why it's not.
I'm not for sure that'll be the last the last image, but if it was, basically like would kind of have the Philistine king look a little ominous, or like give the sense that like he has plans, because the Philistine king, like they're going to be a much more kind of central characters in season 2. So it would just be like a opportunity to kind of like tease tease them as like a
Mhm.
yeah, like a central kind of
That could
not
be
totally
the
antagonist, because like David is like
Mhm.
working with them, but he's kind of a double agent maybe. So that could be the last image, or we could return back and circle back to either like Benaiah kind of like seeing where they're going and like kind of looking like worried, or
Well, this could be the post-credit scene. So we have a more triumphant
yeah
official ending, and then there's a little bit of credits, and then
yeah
oh, who's this? What's the Hittite? Who's he going to go
Yeah.
meet? He's
Yeah.
going to talk to the Philistine king. Oh no!
yeah
Hmm.
Okay, so I've got a question. Okay, so what's the possibility that in this camp they kidnap Michael and bring him back to David? When does she actually hook it back up with David at any point?
yeah
Or does
so
she?
we couldn't do that because canonically David does eventually reclaim Michal after he ascends to the throne. So
Okay.
the stuff that we have about Saul giving her to one of his other servants, all the details aren't there, but the general idea that Saul remarries her, that is in the biblical story. And then it's not until David ascends to the throne that he reclaims her as his own wife. And then they have like a pretty broken marriage after that. It's yeah. But she could potentially still be featured more in season 2, because we'll have to season 2 would have to have like a little more expansion of the Saul side of things. So some more Saul characters wouldn't hurt.
I got 2 questions, I think. I can never see like the first line on this because there's like some sort of thing that goes over it on my screen. Can you read like just the first little line here?
The
And
cold open?
Yeah.
So it's Jonathan and Benaiah returning. So they've been visiting. Jonathan's been visiting David. He was present for David's double wedding, and then Benaiah snuck out and returned with Jonathan as Jonathan headed back to Gibeah. But as they start arriving in Gibeah, they meet a large army issuing forth, and they learn that Saul is going after David.
Can that be tagged on to the ending at all, or any part of that to the last episode?
To try to kind of do like a nice little like sandwich, or
I don't remember how the last episode ends, but just like if it ends on like the cliffhanger of like, oh, like crap's gonna go down here.
Oh, okay. So are you saying get rid of the cold open and put something like, did you have another idea for?
No, I just meant the whole like the ominous kind of like, at least the piece about like Saul leading a host to get David. So
we did have episode 9 end with Saul getting news from the like Nabal's cousin or whatever,
okay.
telling Saul like that he has the location of David's base, and Saul kind of clearly like planning on on acting.
There we go.
So we have kind of the setup in the previous episode. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah. No worries.
Other thought, going back to Act 2, can you describe the demonic fit? Is that just him like kind of by himself, like kind of just going nuts, like in his room or like in a tent or something? Or a nut like, or flip side, is it like really public and like he's giving a speech? And this is something I was thinking of as like an option, like, and the spirit is kind of animating the speech.
So I think that in terms of like how he experiences it, I don't think it's like that the demon has like total control and is like using him as like a mouthpiece or whatever. like I think he's experiencing it as some sort of like fit where he's, you know, dysregulated. Maybe, you know, occasionally he speaks out words that are demonic, but he's also probably like, he's probably mostly like feeling like oppressed and like harassed. I feel like that's kind of how the impression that I get from uh, what Samuel is describing, not as much like a possession, like exorcist sort of thing, but more of like an attack. And so, yeah, I mean, it would be probably more dramatic if it starts out, you know, if maybe he's like leading the army and like it would be good to like come up with like some sort of precipitating event, or, you know, what exactly that would be. But I was imagining that like Joe or Abner, his general, like sees it happening and like has to be like, okay, everybody, like, you know, we have to stop now. Like, yeah, Abner kind of has to like take control
So
because of that.
where are they at when this happens? And then it says demonic fit, comma, camps. Like, so they're not camping at that point. Like, but this
They
causes
haven't
them to
camped
camp?
yet. So I have that as like the demonic fit basically forces them to stop and prevents them from reaching David's headquarters. Like they're like Saul is so overwhelmed that like Abner has to decide like, yeah, we got to stop here. Like we can't keep going like this.
So maybe I'm just latched onto the word demonic here, but it's like you can imagine with Saul, like that there is, you know, something evil and demonic about his intentions, but then like he's got this on top of it, this spirit that's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it's just tormenting him or if it's, but like, I'll just throw this out there as an idea. Could it be that like, you know, Abner kind of says, "Hey, we got to stop," and like kind of tries to restrain him, but that like eventually like Saul kind of isn't constrained anymore and like speaks to his, like this would be a place for like a monologue basically where he we see that like what this spirit brings out in him is like, you know, the fullest of his like violent intentions. So I'm thinking that like that could, if that again were like kind of contrasted with Abiathar, you know, not that he necessarily has a monologue, but could you see something like that, or does that not
You could
fit at
almost
all?
do like a Gollum Smeagol kind of thing where like Saul, like maybe we actually get to see like him arguing against it a little bit, and like it,
Could we see it like prevail too, to the point where
yeah,
like then he's like basically he's rousing his men,
yeah,
you know, to fight, and they're like in a way that like, you know, there's bloodlust or I don't know, like, and that this is what makes Benaiah really angry, or maybe this doesn't fit with like what I don't know, maybe it doesn't fit, but that's one thing I thought of that would make the scene really intense, and then in that context, like Benaiah starts playing this song, that not only like the scene would be that like it causes like these men who are aroused to like, you know,
They have a
basically follow the
bloodlust.
way of like this demonic kind of, I don't know,
so
spirit.
the only thing is like they're already like on their way, like, so it can't be like that they aren't already, like that he isn't already intending to go after David. I almost like, as you were talking about it, I could almost like see this as a moment to expose Saul, like his inner weakness. So like he projects so much as like this man of strength. Like I have the Gollum Smeagol conversation really in my mind a lot right as we're talking. Like when like, you know, Smeagol is like kind of Gollum is like beating down on Smeagol, and like Smeagol is kind of cowering. Yeah, I don't know. I don't exactly have like a specific like back and forth in mind, because I didn't originally envision this, but I could see it being an interesting place to dig into, like to give a little bit of like complexity to Saul, where like he we see that like there's a part of him that actually that doesn't want to go kill David, and
Mhm.
but like a part of him just like is I don't know, like that the demon is kind of like ridiculing him for being weak and for being
Mhm.
like that kind of a feel. Um,
Yeah.
um,
And then what is it that tempts Benaiah at that moment to kill Saul? Or maybe it's not that moment, but like what is
so I think it would more be in the vision that I'm suggesting. I think it would less be that like he sees Saul as like actively colluding with the demon, and more just that he knows that his father is at the is at David's base. He's worried about his dad getting like, he knows that they're almost there. He sees that Saul is like super vulnerable because of this major fit that he's undergoing. And so he has an opportunity, and he knows that he could save his father and save David. Yeah, that's more kind of what I was thinking.
Mhm. I was just thinking that like if he sees that like there's actually something kind of monstrous, about Saul. But maybe so beyond just like his like concern for his father, and but that he sees that like the one who has it out for David and his men is like he sees more than he has before, the evil that's like kind of on that side.
Like he's not
and
like he's not anointed. He's like possessed. Like it's not the Lord who's anointed him. Like he's anointed, by the evil one or whatever. Like almost like
yeah, if he kind of just gets more of that sense. So that's kind of what I read into the whole, that he's tempted to kill Saul there, is that he sees more than he had seen before of just like the evil that's like on this side.
I like that. Like I think, it would probably just be I don't have like the entire script like written out, and so I could definitely see like exploring that as a part of the dynamic there. Yeah.
In any case, just as you were saying that like this is the last time this season that I don't know about the last, but yeah, we really get like an up close like look at Saul, and yeah, just to take advantage of the demonic fit, not just as like the
Like a plot point, but like as
yeah,
like
to
a
like
character
just
moment.
get to the liar with Benaiah, but that it's like yeah, so no, cool.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And that sets up Saul as even feeling more dangerous. Like, oh,
Mm.
he's possessed too.
Mhm.
I mean, that's bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like it.
Any other stuff from the episode?
I just like how way back when we first started talking about this, you had that idea for like, what if we made Benaiah the the have something like the boy, we didn't even know who he was, the slave's son,
Yeah,
and he's
that was Chad's
become
idea.
this,
Yeah.
right. He's become this integral character that I can't imagine the show without Benaiah in it.
Yeah, having him like sing over the camp, that's like one of my like favorite ideas from this like story, like moments from this entire show that I've come up with. So
Yeah, it is cool. It's I think it could be really moving too.
yeah.
And it's a cool like yeah, people who have even just a little bit of familiarity with like the biblical material be like, oh, that's cool. Like they know that this kid's not really in there. But they're like, oh, I see what they're doing there.
Yeah.
It is really
And
cool.
I think he would be probably one of the most popular characters in the show, just because He's young. He's kind of reminds us of David. It's he's not conflicted with all the vengeance and evil like the adults all are. So I think, especially all the stuff you could do to get to that point where that scene is just really the most important scene, almost in the whole, most emotional scene in the whole season so far.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really pushed to like, we've put him in that quadrant of like good ends and good means, but in the face of like, something that's the most clearly, we haven't seen a lot that's supernatural, but if you see like a supernatural kind of evil, I think I can't help but thinking of like using like contacts, like different colored contacts for Saul. That's a very cheap way to get the, for everyone to know what's going on. I'm talking about like red or yellow contacts or something that makes his eyes look a little crazy. That usually kind of gets like, oh, this is weird. Yeah,
His,
and in the
his
face
name
of
could
that,
be, you could have Saul good and it's Saul bad. Those are the two different sides of him.
Yeah, and that, anyways, this is a cool episode to end on, and I'm like one of those people that doesn't love like fight scenes. Like I'm usually bored by them in movies, so I think I'm kind of like in the minority with that. So I don't mind so much that there isn't a fight scene, but it is interesting. I do like the idea that like you're kind of setting up for a fight or something, or at least someone to die, and no one does.
Originally, like when we were kind of outlining, I think my plan was to have some sort of fight where Doeg was going to die. So I actually the taking of him as a slave, I really like that idea too. That's another one where it came to me late, but like
that could be a post credit scene too. You could make it really seem like he was killed earlier, and then the bag opens up and it's out pops Doeg. You're mine now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for walking with me through. Chad.
It just makes me think how, like theologically, you don't have to like necessarily connect the dots for people, but it's like, the Lord could have willed that, like he'd be like, all right, this is his last chance, like he's like Saul's done. But like that through Benaiah, like it's the most obvious. Like the Lord is like, if Benaiah is not just, it's not just Benaiah blessing Saul, but it's the Lord.
Yeah.
Sparing him once again. You don't have to do all that work for like the viewer. Maybe they can piece those things together, but that's feels significant. So anyway, sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, after thanking you guys, if there were any other kind of either final things with this episode or just going through this past season. So I guess before we move on to the season, anything else with this episode? Any final thoughts, questions, comments?
Okay.
And then anything as far as what's the experience been for you guys, like just doing that process of Bible adaptation and taking kind of this biblical story and expanding it out into the story that we've made?
I think it's been an incredible experience so far. It's just getting to dig into all these. Some stories are common, some not common, but familiar. Some are less familiar, and just really seeing how the tendrils of the story really go through forward and backwards in biblical history. You know, echoes things that have happened. It foreshadows things that are going to happen. There's a lot more in this particular section of time than I thought was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, as we were talking and someone brought up like the 40 years in the wilderness, I didn't even have that kind of on the top of my mind, but that's like totally there. Like we're definitely probably supposed to be thinking of the Israelites wandering in the wilderness and connecting it to David's time with the outlaws and kind of the wandering stuff. So it's cool how when you're engaging with the story in a way like this, like you start to see some of those connections and some of the metaphors and the types and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chad, what about
for you? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You can go ahead.
I was going to say I really enjoy how none of the stuff that's been added is opposed to anything biblical or contradicts or colors it in a way that doesn't feel like it's still 100% exactly what is in the written word.
I'd have to think more about, just like kind of general reflections, but it's like how rich Kevin, this is probably what the whole Bible artist thing is about.
Mm-hmm.
Which cool thing, I think I sent this to you, Kevin, that I was literally searching like a Bible question and then the Google AI, was it Gemini or whatever it's called, like whatever pops up at the top now, and it'll like provide answers and like links. And it's like, I click on something and it linked to the Bible artist. I'm like, oh my gosh, there you are. AI is learning from you. Where was I going with that? Just the biblical material is so rich and ripe for creative adaptation. And so it's been, taking a slice of the biblical story and one that's not that well known, and even one where it's like you don't have, we didn't even include necessarily the big flashy story of David and Goliath, but it's like even just realizing that like there's hardly anything overtly supernatural, and yet being able to make it's like we gravitate towards like Exodus, be like, oh, like the parting of the Red Sea, and there isn't like a moment like that, and yet you can make a really compelling story that's moving and asks real questions that the Bible is asking, that we are still asking. So anyways, sorry, that's a little meandering, but I just think it's been a really neat experience so far, as Mick said.
Yeah, definitely. Like you just like see kind of some of the kernels that the Bible gives us. Like there's just so much to unpack as we do that through storytelling. So yeah, and on my end, like I've really you guys have been a big blessing to me. I know you guys like talk about how like I do the outlines and a lot of the detail work and stuff, but even so, like this definitely wouldn't be the same experience if I was just like sitting here doing it all myself. As we were discussing earlier, the character of Benaiah, Chad came up with the initial idea there, and and he turned out to be like a real key player in the story. So just the process of collaborating together, you guys asking questions, kind of pushing me on certain points or offering ideas and things like that. It's made it so much better. So really grateful to you guys and the part that you've played.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the royalties, should they come.
Cool.
Yeah,
well,
it's been really awesome.
Yeah. So we're this is the end of our season 1 outlining, and who knows when season 2 will be. We'll take a break from like doing like episode outlining and season stuff, Chad is probably going to be taking a break for a while now. Yeah, me and Victor, we've discussed potentially doing a couple more odd episodes where we do some AI art or talk about like casting, like fantasy casting. But it might be a little more regular. And then down the road, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, I am working on a script for episode 1. I probably won't write scripts for like all 10 episodes because that would be a lot. But yeah, once I finish the script for episode 1, maybe we can do some sort of reading of it, or at least a portion of it, because that would be kind of fun. Yeah, Chad.
If I don't get a chance to do the fantasy casting, two that are cemented in my mind that I can't get out. Tom Holland, for some reason, for like because I think of Spider-Man as kind of like wisecracking and like small, and so he fits like the David character that I have in my head. And then I was like, what is the dough egg that I've been picturing? This like subhuman, like kind of figure, and no one is going to know what this is. But there was an old McDonald's toy, like around Halloween. This is from like the mid '90s, of a Ronald McDonald, where they had like it was like a little Ronald McDonald figurine, and then it had a Frankenstein, like kind of casting or something over it that I don't know how to explain it. But that is what I picture, is this Ronald McDonald Frankenstein. That's my dough egg. Like that's what. Anyways, so I had
his name sounds like dog, so he's got to have some kind of, non-human kind of feel about him, I think.
Then that just makes me think of Barf from Spaceballs.
Well, Chad, we can also kind of, even if you aren't able to jump on, feel free. Like if you have any other like cast character ideas, like you can still message us and we can, work it in and include it.
I mean, hearing that, do you really want my ideas?
Yeah. Well, if we put together like a list of like possible options, maybe we'll include that.
I'll throw this out as one cool idea. This could be, I thought about like how much work or time, but mostly on Kevin's part, but just like the collaboration to come up with, this is a thing that exists, which is cool. Like even just in the outline, or like in the outline form, that's really cool. But I thought like these days you could put things into Chat GPT and come up with a complex kind of prompt. That'd be kind of an interesting exercise to be like, what would it spit out? Knowing this, if it knows the source material, and if you gave it some guidelines or certain ideas, and
it can definitely do all of that. Even in screenplay form,
like,
you could do
not
that.
necessarily to compare and be like, I guess to compare, but I'm not anticipating that it would be some amazing thing, but that would be kind of interesting to see like what it would come up with.
Yeah.
Because I think we've talked about how like this is a very creative kind of exercise that there are lots of different forms that an adaptation of this source material could take, and that would be one way of seeing, well, what would someone else do or something do, like AI. So
actually, there's also a adaptation that's in the works, The House of David. So that's something like once that finally comes out, I'll also be like, it'll be interesting to watch and how like this experience shapes my watching experience. Like if I'll be like, you should have done this instead, or if I'll like, maybe I'll also be like more sympathetic, if people are like jumping down their throat for doing something, I'll be like, actually, like I've worked on this before, and like it really is a thorny issue. So like you guys should give them like some grace on this. So yeah, I'm looking forward to like seeing how this informs watching that show whenever it finally comes out. Yeah,
that'd be fun.
But yeah, I guess the fellowship is ending, at least for now. Well, partially for now, and so thanks again so much to both of you, and thanks for any of you who have watched it either in person or like simultaneously or whatever, or who have gone back and watched through our episodes. Please, if you haven't watched previous episodes, go back and do that. You can probably skip like the first couple, but I feel like once we get a couple episodes in, we really hit stride. So like, subscribe, all that stuff, and check the Bible Artist for kind of other content, especially on like The Chosen. Hopefully we'll get a few more of these out there with kind of some other fun visual stuff to just kind of imagine what this show would look like. But until then, thanks everyone for listening, and Godspeed.